2016 was a rough reading year for I feel like all of BookTube, and me including. I just came out and I still think I am in a giant reading slump, and I have 9 favorite books that I will be presenting to you guys, so let's just get into it. Coming up on number 9, we have A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, the sequel of An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. A Torch Against the Night, you can tell that there isn't as much passion in the writing as there was in An Ember in the Ashes. Another reason why this is kind of not at my top favorites like An Ember in the Ashes was, is because it was just like the turn of the events and the way it's going right now is just like not the way I wanted it to go, and it's kind of pissing me off. But the writing and the world and the characters still are very good, very enthralling. I was really doubting if I was actually going to put this on my list, but then I read 2 or 3 chapters and I remembered why Sabaa Tahir was like a giant author. The way Sabaa Tahir constructs her story is so interesting and so fascinating. Definitely a step down from An Ember in the Ashes, but still fantastic book. I don't want to say anything about the story and how it goes down, but just, it's good. By Alexandra Bracken. Passenger is such an interesting read and such a diverse and different read, and I'm so glad that I picked it up. It's a diverse read of time travel, and Alexandra Bracken's writing is so good in this, and you get to discover these different eras and times, and the story and the way Alexandra Bracken created this world is so good, and I really liked it, and I really think you should pick this up. Like, I actually audiobooked this, and the audiobook is really good. It's actually the first audiobook I actually fully listened to without stopping. I loved the writing. I just sat down and listened to it and really enjoyed it, and I couldn't stop, and like I was always listening to it all the time. The reason why it's number 8 on my list and not higher is because I wasn't dying to know what's gonna be next, but it was still like the story in the moment was fantastic, and the romance is so well done. Just read this if you haven't yet. By S.E. Hinton. This book was actually a giant surprise. This is a classic that I had to read in school and study in school, and I really didn't think I was gonna like it because I really don't like classics usually, because I just don't like, you know, the way they represent some things and stuff. But this book, written 50 years ago, I could relate to this. But I really enjoyed this book. I'm just like deeply affected by the book. It may have to do with the fact that I studied it and I really delved into the book and really tried to understand it on a deeper level. And it's the story about this boy like 50 years ago in a gang. It's a story that's so kind of unrealistic, but at the same time, and I could just like compare and contrast on my life. I highly recommend you picking this up and kind of really think of it on a deeper level. It's not going to be straightforward. You're not just going to be like, oh yeah, I totally see how you can relate to this. I don't know. It's definitely my favorite classic now. So yeah. Is the End of Days series. I really liked this series. This series is kind of like, you know when you're on a diet and then there's that one day where you kind of cheat? I feel like this book was this for me. This book is really fun and really, it's like a dark, sexy read, but at the same time, it's really fun and entertaining. It's definitely not at that professional level and sharpness that other books on my list are, but it's really just like a cheat kind of book that if you really want something fun, something that's going to entertain you, and that's really quick because the books are tiny. When people ask me what it's about, I kind of just compare it to Twilight. You know, it's kind of an apocalypse kind of thing where there's angels and then there's a human. The main character is hilarious. This is more kind of like a guilty pleasure kind of book that I really enjoyed because it was so fun and so entertaining, and there's just sections of the book that I'll just go back and just read it because the dialogue and the characters and their interactions and their romance is just really fun. It was great. It was a great read. Is The Darkest Minds, book 1 and 2 by Alexandra Bracken. I don't have any plans on reading book 3 because a lot of people have been telling me that it's not as good, and I just don't want to read it. If you don't know, this is a dystopian book. In 2014, that was like my high prime dystopian year. And I don't think really I picked up dystopian after because it just kind of got so repetitive. But this series is so good and so refreshing. It's hilarious, but the characters are really good. And this was a really rough and tough kind of book. Yeah, let's go. Is Akamath by Sarah J. Maas. It's number 4 for me because when I was reading this, I was seeing some very faint, reoccurring plot lines that I saw and hated in the Throne of Glass series, and I was just kind of bitter at Sarah J. Maas because I was like, really, you gotta just bring it back. It's still a really interesting, dark, sexy read. If you haven't read this book, I don't know what you're doing on booktube, but it's definitely a series you gotta get onto. It's really entertaining, you can't put it down. The romance in it is really interesting. The world in it is fantastic. It's a really great balance of all the different aspects that you want in a book, like action and, you know, things like that. It was really good. Woo! If you didn't like the Throne of Glass series, I didn't either, but I still really like this, so don't let it stop you, because this is definitely something you want to get onto now, because there's going to be 8 books. I'm going to be graduated by the time this series is over. Graduated. Oh my gosh. And I can see this series going fantastic places, especially because it's going to be extended to 8 books. A lot of people are like, oh, she's milking it. She's not milking it. She's making a better series. Very well constructed, very entertaining. I really liked it. You should read it if you haven't yet, because they're big books. Is the Young Lead series by Mary Lewis. I loved this book series. Oh my goodness. I just finished the last book. It was fantastic. This series is so refreshing and so different from every other YA book. If you don't know yet, the main character in this book series is actually an anti-hero, meaning she's a bad character. Loved the way it turned out, and I loved the characters. The characters in this book series are fantastic, and the world that she's created is really good, and just like, I couldn't put it down, and it's pretty fast reads. It's not really big books. They're like average-ish, and I loved it so much, and it just took me in a role, and I couldn't stop putting down the book. If you haven't read this series, not a lot of people have read this series, and I don't understand why, because it's so good. If you haven't read the series, I highly, highly recommend you read the series. It's diverse, it's fantasy, it's different from anything you've ever read. Pick it up. Number 2 is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. Oh my goodness. Guys, this book was fantastic. This is now my second favorite book by Cassandra Clare after Clockwork Princess. Like, it's past the Mortal Instruments series, and it's past Clockwork Angel and Clockwork Prince. Does that not surprise you? That is insane to me. It's so funny, and the story is so well constructed, and the way she melded this poem in the story, and Julian and Emma and their romance, and I ship it so hard, and I feel so much for these characters. It's the first book I've ever defaced. Can you see that? And if you haven't read this book series yet, that means you probably haven't picked up the Cassandra Clare books. And if you haven't picked up the Cassandra Clare books yet, you're in for a ride. There's 10 books that you have to read, including this one. The series isn't even over yet. There's like 6 more books coming out, and I'm so freaking excited. Ooh. I was so ready for this to be my favorite book. It's so good. Cassandra Clare's writing just got so much better, and like everything turned out the way I wanted it to turn out. This book sequel is definitely my most anticipated release for 2017, like hands down, hands down. This is my favorite book of 2016. This book was fantastic. There are actually 2 books, but I only have one physically, and that is The Six of Crows Duology. Oh my god. So good, so good. Read this. This is my top read of the year. This is now my second favorite series in the world after Harry Potter. It might even be tied with my least favorite book of Harry Potter. Do you realize? This beats Infernal Devices. It's so good. Look what I did to it. I defaced it. Look at it. Do you see? The characters and the ships. The writing was fantastic. It was so funny, and I just couldn't put down this book. Crooked Kingdom is also so fantastic. The feels and the love for this book. Phenomenal series. Phenomenal book. If you haven't read this book series, I don't know what you're doing with your life. I literally fell in love with it. I want more. Okay, first off, it's only 2 books. Excuse me. This is like, if I could get more of any series, it would be hands down this series. I want more of these characters. The quality of these characters beat the quality of J.K. Rowling's characters. Do you realize what I'm saying? I'm saying that the characters in Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom are better than the Harry Potter characters. end all do all. So frigging good. I want the whole world to read this series. I want this to explode. I want a TV show. I want everything. You should read it. Okay, that was a ride of a video. And those are my favorite books of 2016. That's all I have for you today. Peace out. Have a great reading year. Also, if you're wondering what my Goodreads goal is going to be for 2017, it's probably going to be around 50 books. Next year is going to be a crazy ass year. Like, things are going to swing when it comes to like school and stuff. So I don't know how it's going to go, but let's go books. Read Six of Crows, by the way. Read it.